I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up.
I'm going to be honest, man. That song does nothing for me.
You don't want to pump it up anymore, Chris? What the heck?
I am a gloomy Gus this afternoon here. Just a gloomy Gus over here. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know what it is. I'll say this. This whole turning back the clocks bullshit.
I'm over that.
Haven't we reached a point in society where do we really need to do this? Like, it's already a tough time of year. The weather gets cold. It's overcast all the time. Do we really have to live our existence in perpetual darkness as well? Give me the extra hour of daylight. Yesterday, we were trying to do some things with the kids, and I was like, man, we got to get them ready for bed. We got to get, brush teeth, do the whole bedroom. It was like 5:30. It was 5:30, and I was already ready to do the bedtime routine. So I don't know. I mean, there are some states that don't do it, right? There's some states that don't do isn't it like Arizona, Hawaii doesn't do it. They keep the same time. Isn't that correct? Somebody out there can.
I don't know. I know Ohio was supposed to, I thought, go away from it, and we're still in 2024 and still doing it. So
that's because Ohio's a terrible state. Look, I'll be honest. We talked about this before we went live. Trent and I, we were sitting here thinking, how can we turn this into an hour-long show? And I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it anymore, man. I feel like we hop on here and, we've had the luxury of talking about some wins and where some things look good, but this team is 5-4. There's issues from week to week. And at this point, it feels like we're beating a dead horse. It feels like it's just the same reoccurring issues week after week. And I don't know how to talk about it anymore. There's nobody who expected Michigan to beat Oregon, unless you're like just one of those fans where, again, you wanted to do, the hope and a prayer sort of thing, and you thought they could pull off an upset. And I think every fan hoped that would be the case. But if you were being realistic about it, nobody expected Michigan to win that game. And surprisingly, I think the players played well enough to potentially pull off the upset. But Trent, coaching on this football team is such a head scratcher for me. And when I sat and thought about it the other night, I'm thinking how much wiggle room do you give these guys? How much of a leash should they have? And ultimately what I came down to is that the University of Michigan, this football program, this is not a learn-on-the-job type football program. I feel like if you're going to be a coach here, if you're going to be a coordinator here, you need to be well-established. You need to have a lot of experience, a long track record of success in order to coach at the University of Michigan. Learning on the job, that's for those lower-level universities where you're trying to get go coach at Central, go coach at Fresno or Ferris State or wherever the hell else. Go to Eastern, but you can't learn on the job at the University of Michigan. And some of the things that we saw on Saturday very much felt like guys who were still trying to figure it out, which is strange considering Wink Martindale has as much experience as he does as a defensive coordinator. So I think the issue with Wink Martindale may be different from the issue that we're seeing with Kurt Campbell. But Trent, I mean, do we start there? Do we just start with the coaching staff, or do you want to at least give some credit to the players and what you saw out of them on Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday in the press box, I put out a tweet that actually kind of surfaced a little bit, I guess, on social media. But you have to give credit to the players because they did not quit. They fought. I mean, that's something that we've seen with this Michigan team going back early on. It's like the second half, they would come out and they would look bad, and not only coaching, but the players wouldn't execute. And It was just poor play. But now for 2 straight weeks, the players have tried. They've executed for the most part okay, but it goes back to coaching. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know where this team goes from here, because Davis Warren, for as poorly as he played the first 2.5 games, he's played well enough now where if Michigan's defense, Michigan's skill players, coaching would allow them to stay in these games, I think Davis Warren has played well enough to win games. You go back and look at 2021, Cade McNamara, he was nothing special. He was a game manager, but he had enough players around him, and he also had coaching around him that allowed Michigan to win games in 2021. And I look at Davis Warren being the same way. We saw him, he layered balls into Colston Loveland.
Yeah.
He made an excellent pass to Tyler Morris for a touchdown. Peyton O'Leary, he was off platform on his back foot and threw a great pass to Peyton O'Leary, out of all guys, Peyton O'Leary, for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like he made enough plays to win the game for Michigan. Obviously, they were outmatched. Oregon is the number 1 team in the country. There is a big talent gap there from Oregon to Michigan. It is what it is. Yeah. This is not Michigan from 21, 22, 23. This is Michigan in 2024. And not only are they outmatched, but coaching, man, just head and shoulders better over at a place like Oregon. Indiana, I mean, Michigan's playing Indiana this week, and Kurt Cignetti, worlds better than what Michigan has right now. And I'm definitely not on the fire Sherrone Moore train yet. I'm not. I think Sherrone, you give him at least 1 more year here at Michigan to see what he does. But here's what I think. I think Sherrone Moore, as a first-year head coach, as a new head coach, you have to surround yourself with the best possible X's and O's guys that you can. And it's clear Wink Martindale and Kurt Campbell, they are not getting the job done. So I don't know what you do if you're Sherrone Moore, but he's going to have a lot of tough decisions to make this offseason. Or we're talking next year at this time, Sherrone might be battling for his job. That's for sure. If he doesn't make these tough decisions, then you can't have next year looking like this if you're Sherrone.
There's no doubt about that. It cannot look this way. And I think it's one thing if you don't have the players that you need. I think certainly that's an issue. And obviously recruiting can help fix that, and development can help fix that. But I mean, look, here's where I'm at on this whole coaching staff thing. I think that great coaches can make an average team look good, but I think that average coaches can make a good team look bad. And I think that that's what we're seeing from this team, is that you have average coaches making what could be a good team look bad. And we see it every single Saturday. And we saw it in particular on Saturday against Oregon. And it was, there's a number of things that you can point to throughout this game. And I'm not going to go through the entire list, but, third quarter, right? Michigan is down 11 points. They've got momentum starting to swing back to their side. They force Oregon into a punt situation, and you have an illegal formation on defense. And even the CBS commentators were like, how did nobody from Michigan see it? How did nobody up in the press box see it? How was there no communication from the coaching staff to get a timeout there? Because getting the ball back, getting possession back was critical on that drive. And instead, you have the illegal formation. You give Oregon a first down. They're able to continue on that drive. 3 plays later, Trent, the Michigan defense had 10 men on the field. 3 plays later, Michigan's playing with 10 defenders on the field. You know what happened 3 plays after that? Michigan had not 12, 13 guys on the field when the ball was snapped from Oregon. 13 guys on the field, another penalty, and ultimately Oregon's able to put up another 3 points on the board. Fortunately, Michigan was able to keep them out of the end zone. But you're talking about one drive, illegal formation, 10 men on the field, 13 guys on the field, and it leads to points. So, you go from that to the fourth quarter. So that's the defensive issue. That's on Wink Martindale. That's, part of that's on Sherrone Moore. Somebody has to be able to see, we don't have enough men on the field. We got too many guys on the field. We're trying to substitute at the wrong time. Like, that's 100% on coaching. You go to the fourth quarter, And it is once again, critical drive offensively for Michigan. You're in scoring position. You're on the 15-yard line. You've got 4 opportunities to put the ball in the end zone. And the play calling down there was absolutely confusing. I get it. First down, Davis Warren, you roll him out to the left. He ends up throwing it out of bounds. There's nothing there. I'm fine with that. The second play, you swap out Davis Warren, who's having a great evening. You bring in Alex Orji, and you run it up the middle, and you get like 2 or 3 yards out of it. You get nothing. You bring Alex Orji out, you put Davis Warren back in, and what's the play? You turn around and you hand it off to Khalil Mullings, who didn't have a very good night. Right up the middle, doesn't get much, 2 or 3 yards. So now you put yourself in a critical 4th and 5 situation where you have got to get points on the board. And if you're Kurt Campbell, this is where I think you got to go to your bread and butter. You got to go to what works. And Trent, what was working for Michigan offensively for most of the night? If you had to say there was one thing that was really working offensively, what was it?
Davis Warren to Colston Loveland.
That's it. Davis Warren to Colston Loveland, number 16 to number 18. That connection was there all night, and they were making shit happen offensively. So if you're 4th and 5 and you absolutely got to have it, why not go with your quarterback who's been pretty much on point all afternoon and your tight end who can catch basically anything within the vicinity? You live and die on that happily. And if it doesn't work, screw it. It didn't work, but at least you gave yourself the best shot. Instead of doing that, you bring Alex Orji back into the game, a trick play reversal where you're asking your sophomore wide receiver who, let's be honest, hasn't had the best season, hasn't been very involved on Saturdays, at least from a production standpoint. You're asking this guy to do a throwback pass across the field to the back corner of your end zone to your second string quarterback to keep you in the game? How the hell was that even an option? And if Sharon Moore knew that was the play call, he should have intervened.
Oh, he absolutely knew that was the play call. At the end of the day, he is the head coach. He was the offensive coordinator. Everything that Kurt Campbell does goes through him, through his headset. So Sharon Moore absolutely 100% knew that call. Then,
look, I said this, there were some people that were like, you got to ease up a Sharon Moore and, you don't, the off-season circumstances and, nobody thought it was going to be this. Nobody thought it was going to be that. I don't know that there's anybody that has talked more about trying to give Sharon Moore leeway because of what he had to deal with in the transition more than myself and Trent. We are fully aware of that. And we give him, I don't want to say give him leash for it, but we understand that it just wasn't a simple transition. But this is not about what we saw on Saturday was not about the transition. That's just about understanding the situation of the game and understanding what's best for your offense. And if you're the head coach, you got to step in, you got to put an end to that. You cannot allow, if you want to try that play on 2nd down, maybe even on 3rd down, like go ahead and try it and give yourself a chance. But to try that on 4th down, where if you don't get it, the game is absolutely over. I just thought that was an absolutely ridiculous call. And everybody who is involved with that should share blame. And that's where I come back to this whole, it was a difficult transition for Sharon Moore, but that doesn't mean he should be shielded from blame when it's warranted. And I think that there is some blame that falls on Sharon Moore's feet for Saturday, for what we saw on Saturday, particularly in those critical instances. And here's the other thing I'll say about Sharon Moore. I like the guy. I think he has the potential to be a phenomenal head coach at the University of Michigan. But I was also pretty disappointed in what I saw from the postgame. And Trent, you were sitting right there next to me. I don't know if you saw it off to the side the way that I did. Maybe I read too much into it. But Davis Warren was at the table, and somebody had asked him questions about what needed to happen or why didn't things go a certain way. And Davis Warren did what all good leaders do. He sat up there and he said, "This one's on me. I got to be better. I got to be better on 3rd downs. I got to be better in this area. I got to be better in that area." And even Tyler Morris was like, "Chill out. Davis Warren is great." And you saw Donovan Edwards do it, a week ago or so? Like, the players are coming to his defense and saying, "Hey, you're doing what you need to do, man." And as Davis Warren was saying this, I was looking over at Sharon Moore, who looked very unhappy when he was standing off to the side. And as Davis Warren was saying, "I got to be better. I got to be better," Sharon Moore was repeatedly like shaking his head back and forth. And I'm like, okay, this is it. This is one of those moments, Trent, where I've told you this, where somebody from the coaching staff needs to walk up to the podium and just say some real shit. And I thought we were finally going to get it from Sharon Moore. I thought he was going to go sit at the table, look into the cameras, and say, the coaching staff failed these guys tonight. We have got to be better. We got to be better offensively. We got to be better defensively. I thought our players played hard, and I think our coaches failed them. And I thought that would have went a long way, not just to like the perception of the program, but maybe go a long way in the locker room. And I don't know if those conversations are happening behind closed doors. I'm not going to pretend to know that because I don't. But I thought that was a huge missed opportunity for Sharon Moore to really put it on his shoulders and say, the coaching was not good enough tonight. I think anybody that watched that football game knew that Oregon had superior coaching. And I think that was a big, big difference maker in that game. Michigan had enough talent to keep it close, but Michigan didn't have enough coaching talent to keep it close. That was obvious to me on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. When Davis Warren was taking that loss on his shoulders, he was saying that he has to be better on third downs to give his team a chance to compete and win. Look, Davis Warren, I think I speak for everybody when I say that you were not the problem. You battled, you fought, you made enough plays where Michigan could have won the game. Here's what happened. Oregon scored 21 points in the second quarter, right? Michigan had a chance to go down the field and get a touchdown, but instead you derail your own drive when you get inside the red zone because you take the guy, Davis Warren, that led you down the field out of the game for Alex Orji, who then they actually try to attempt a pass. It wasn't there. He throws the ball out of bounds. Then you run it up the middle. Then you're behind the sticks, third and long. Davis Warren, I believe, incomplete pass. You kick the field goal, but then you give enough time for Oregon to go down the field to get that touchdown to make it 21 in the second quarter. So you're down 28 to 28-10, I believe, at halftime. And then same thing, you're down 14. You have to get a touchdown midway through the fourth quarter. You already described what happened, but you derail your own drive once again because you outsmart yourself when you're Kurt Campbell. The running game did nothing all game long. Donovan Edwards had one or two good runs. Other than that, it was non-existent. The reason why they got down the field was because of Davis Warren making enough plays with his arm. So you're in the situation where you have to have a touchdown. You don't even let this kid try to get a touchdown, which he did twice in the game.
Right.
It makes no sense.
If you're Davis Warren, like, you got to feel some type of way about that. And he's a good guy. I mean, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's humble. I mean, he's obviously been through a lot, and I think his perspective on life is a really good one. But you can't tell me as a competitor, if you're Davis Warren, they take the football out of your hands on a critical fourth down, you're not feeling a certain.
He's got to be like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Of course, he's not going to say that.
Right, but I don't think he's the only way feeling. Like, you take Davis Warren out. You take Colston Loveland out of the equation. You take you put your eggs in Samaj Morgan and Alex Orji and just this wild. So, like, if it was Alex Orji throwing to Samaj Morgan, I could have stomached that a little bit more. Like, this whole idea of, and I understand if it works. Let me ask you this. If it worked, would you feel any differently about how shitty of a play call that was?
Absolutely. If Samaj Morgan throws a touchdown pass to Alex Orji or whoever, yeah, I'm standing right here. I'm sitting right here with you today saying that was a stupid call. Yeah, it worked out for Michigan, but you don't do that in that situation. The third down call right before, Clell Mullings, I think, had 16 yards in the entire game. He wasn't working.
For like the second straight game, he has been, I think it was, he had 18 yards the previous week. Like, Clell Mullings, after that, pretty solid start, has been, to a certain extent, MIA for a few weeks.
Yeah, he didn't do much against Michigan State, and then it did nothing against Oregon. But you give him the opportunity to run it up the middle on 3rd and 7. He gains 2 yards. So you have back-to-back plays where you don't put it in your quarterback's hands, who led you down the field. Like, I would understand that fourth down call more so if Davis Warren threw 3 interceptions. He wasn't moving the ball. The run game was the reason why you got down there. You feel like you have to run a trick play in order to score. But that wasn't the case. Michigan was moving the ball in Oregon. It just couldn't capitalize twice, though, in the red zone with touchdowns. But it goes back to coaching and the play calling. And that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and we just continue to talk about it. I feel like week after week, and Brandon from the Facebook page, and I do want to make this clear because a lot of people are like, I saw it in the comments after the game and a couple articles we put up there, like, the people that are, if you're calling for Sharon Moore to be, no, but we are not calling for Sharon Moore to be fired. And I don't think that there's any reasonable fan that thinks that's the move right now. But I think what Trent said earlier rings true. And I think Sharon Moore in the coming weeks is going to be faced with some real difficult decisions, more difficult than he's had to face so far. I think putting Kurt Campbell in place as the offensive coordinator, bringing in Wink Martindale, were those difficult decisions? I don't know. That was like out of necessity. At that point, when he was doing all of that, you're trying to take whatever you can get at the time he had, within the time he had to do it. But I think that after watching the way this season has played out, I mean, Trent, what do you think the reception is going to be if Sharon Moore opts to bring back Kurt Campbell as the offensive coordinator? What do you think the reception is going to be if Sharon Moore opts to bring back Wink Martindale as defensive coordinator? I think that, and you can't make your decisions based on what the fan base thinks, but overall, people are looking at these two coordinators saying they got to go. Regardless of how you feel about Sharon Moore, I don't think if you were to put out a poll and say, should Sharon Moore bring back Kurt Campbell and Wink Martindale in 2025? I would venture to say you wouldn't get a single. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe
I think Kurt Campbell would vote for it, but I mean, other than that, he wouldn't get very many votes.
And look, I'll say this, out of the two guys, I think it's, and as weird as it sounds, because there have been some head scratchers offensively, I think that probably Kurt Campbell is the most likely to come back because of the impact I think he has on the recruiting trail with guys like a Brady Hart or, some of the other quarterbacks that are in the fold. I mean, there is that aspect of what Kurt Campbell brings to the table. And so maybe it is he goes back to just being the quarterback's coach and, hey, Kirk, we got to get like a legit offensive coordinator in here. We got to go get a guy who's been doing this, who's elite, that wants to come to Ann Arbor. Maybe that is the move. I don't know what it is, but I think you're right. Like, I just don't see any scenario where you can keep these two coordinators in place. And again, you like these guys personally, right? I mean, they seem like good guys. I don't know them, and I'm not trying to disparage them, but I think you also got to look at, the wide receivers have not been very productive. And I think you really got to ask some questions about Ron Bellamy. Is Ron Bellamy the right guy to be your wide receivers coach? Seems like he is. I mean, great personality. I think he's really good on the recruiting trail.
I mean, receivers have been okay until this season, right? Like Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson.
They've been okay. They've been all right. But I mean, we're not seeing like any superstar wide receivers walking through the door in Ann Arbor. And probably that's, a byproduct of what the Michigan offense looks like. I'm sure that's a part of it. But that goes back to what we were talking about before. Like, you want to bring a guy like Bryce Underwood in, you're going to have to bring some big time receivers along with him as well. He wants guys that can make plays. And so I just think that there is a lot that needs to happen with this roster and with this coaching staff in the offseason. And for as much as we want to give Sharon Moore a free pass on this season because the conditions in which he took over this program were just wonky, just not, it wasn't a typical transition. We're going to find out what type of coach he is, what the value is really going to be this offseason, because now you've seen it. You're sitting here at 5-4. At best, you're going to be 6-6. There's a chance you might not even make a bowl game this year. I mean, you're going to have to hope that Northwestern doesn't come to Ann Arbor and have a really good day. But I just don't see a situation where you're going to get a win over Indiana and you're going to get a win over Ohio State. So really, it comes down to Northwestern. And with as inconsistent as this team is, anything can happen on Saturday in Ann Arbor in late November, right? We know that. So I just think that we're at a point now with the coaching staff where, yeah, okay, Sharon, you get a free pass for this one because the circumstances were very, very difficult when you took over. But when you look at the way it's transpired this year, and especially the defensive side of the ball, I mean, you got 4 guys over there that are projected first-round picks. This defense should not be that bad. Once again, against Oregon, the Ducks were 10 of 15 on third down. 10 of 15 on third down. So you can't get off the field on third down. You're giving up big chunk plays. Certainly didn't help that you were missing Jair Hill and Will Johnson, which is a whole different issue altogether as to why guys can't stay healthy. I mean, dude, looking at this injury.
Yeah, what's going on with Michigan's injuries, man? I don't understand.
That's another thing that I just don't get. Week to week, every time we get the injury report, you're seeing big names on there. You got a couple of guys that are now down.
Marion Walker starts playing good football, and then all of a sudden he's been out the last 2 weeks after coming in and starting for Michigan. Jair Hill, why is he out? Like we have no idea. Like what is going on with this Michigan team? What are they doing during practices that you have all these guys out every single week?
I don't know. I mean, ask strength and conditioning coach, like I don't know what it is. It's just been it feels like it's been a rockier season than it needed to be. And that just goes back to what I said before about like how big of an impact coaching can have on what type of season you have. And I think really good coaches can get the most out of teams that are average. But I don't even view this as an average team. I mean, I think there's some talent here. And I mean, Trent, do you think this team's playing up to its full potential? I don't, not anywhere close. And
no,
to
I
me,
mean,
that speaks to coaching.
I predicted this team to win 10 games this season. So of course, I don't think they're playing up to potential.
That's wild. 10 wins. Could you imagine? 10 wins, we're having a much different conversation here. Did you ever answer the question, by the way, I asked you, did you think that they made a mistake going away from Davis Warren after week 3?
I mean, obviously hindsight, you would say yes. At the same time, maybe Davis Warren needed time to sit down and collect his thoughts and prepare a little bit more than where he was at in week 1. But obviously, if you're just looking at the games, then you would say yes.
How do you like this from Douglas Guest from the Facebook page? Just pull the old switcheroo and have Sharon start poaching members of the Chargers defensive staff for sure. Let's go after
do you think a guy like Jesse Minter would come to Michigan?
I heard Jesse Minter's pretty good. That would be interesting to see if they could pull that off. Yeah, damn you, Jim Harbaugh. Damn you. Why? Why did you have to take everybody with you? You were good enough to restart. You could have found other people out there. You did Sharon a little bit dirty, Jim. That's just the way it is. Let's go through some of these comments. Yeah. But as far as the you're exactly right. It's easy now in hindsight to you should have stuck with Davis Warren. But after you throw 6 interceptions in 3 games, I think you have to make a choice there. And we were all calling for it at the time. It wasn't like we were resistant to it. I've said it before. I could hear it in the big house. It was orgy. Maybe they were talking about something else, but I assume they were talking about the quarterback. And so, with Jack Tuttle not part of the equation dealing with injury, you had to go to Alex Orji. And I think when Jack Tuttle came back, you had to go and explore that. And I think when, I was shocked to see Jack Tuttle announce his retirement. I wasn't aware that he had 5 concussions and was dealing with some other things. Like, I wasn't aware that it was that bad. And I got to imagine, like, did the coaching staff, were they also not aware that he was dealing with these things and that it was far more than maybe just like an arm injury or some other things? Like, it seemed like Jack Tuttle was going through some stuff. So overall, the quarterback situation just not great. And yeah, it's easy with hindsight to say, yeah, you should have stuck with Davis Warren, and who knows how far along Michigan would be at this point. But honestly, I don't fault Sharon Moore for that. I felt like he made the moves he needed to make to try to find a guy who could get Michigan over the top and potentially push them into a playoff spot. But the reality is none of the options he went with worked very well. And it just so happened that Davis Warren did turn out to be the best of them. I think he's exactly what you said, Trent. He's Cade McNamara 2.0. I might even give him an edge over Cade McNamara. I mean,
let me tell you this just real quick.
Yeah.
If you put Cade McNamara in Michigan today, I don't think he's I think he's worse than what Davis Warren is. I think if he comes to Michigan today and he plays against Oregon or Michigan State, I think Davis Warren performs better than Cade McNamara.
Yeah, I would agree. And Mr. Jones from the YouTube page says, how does Michigan have a coach that's learning on the go? Well, here's how you have that situation. Again, by the time Jim Harbaugh made his decision to become the Chargers head coach, you're talking about late January. Most of the good coordinators that were out there were already locked in other places. How much of a head coaching search was Michigan trying to do outside of Sharon Moore? I'm not sure, because the whole point was continuity, and you wanted to keep what was already happening at Michigan going. with the culture, and you wanted to keep guys like Will Johnson and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant happy. You didn't want them entering the transfer portal because that felt like a worst case scenario. So it seemed like at the time Sharon Moore was the best way to go. And obviously he had the head coaching experience when Sharon Moore served multiple suspensions last season and did well in those instances. And so I don't put it on Sharon Moore as far as, yes, he's a first-year head coach, but I do think he's a guy who can coach at this level. But I think your question is entirely valid when it comes to the coordinators. And the way that I would answer that is the same way I answered the first part of that, was I think a lot of it had to do with timing for Sharon Moore. I think he was trying to do the best with the timing that he had to do it. And that's why I say this offseason is a different animal. I don't know how you bring back Kurt Campbell as your offensive coordinator. It doesn't mean he can't be on the staff. You can put him back at quarterbacks coach. He's a great recruiter. I do think there's value to having Kurt Campbell on the staff, but I don't think that value is that offensive coordinator. And then when it comes to Wink Martindale, man, like, look, when when Mike McDonald left and Jesse Minter came in, the defense didn't fall off. And in fact, it got a little bit better. And when Wink Martindale took over for Jesse Minter, that was the expectation because he came from that same coaching philosophy. He was the architect of that coaching philosophy. And this defense has fallen off big time. And for as much as they lost offensively, once again, 4 potential first-round selections on the defensive side of the ball. You've got arguably the best front four in all of college football. You've got the top cornerback in college football when he's healthy. You've got enough pieces there to where you should not be so bad on third down. You should not be so bad in your pass defense. They're pretty good against the run, but they're also giving up a lot of points. Last year, they gave up just over 10 points per game. This year, it's over 22. So this defense is not what it has been for the last 3 years. And really, when you look at it, I mean, sure, can you point to personnel on the field? You can, but I think it has a lot more to do with coaching. And things like seeing Mason Graham lined up at the edge on a critical third down when he should be in the interior. Those are the types of things that don't seem to make sense. Yeah, I agree with you. And going into the season, my main concern was Kurt Campbell, just because he hasn't really, he has not been an offensive coordinator at this level. He was at Old Dominion. It didn't work out for him at Old Dominion. So you elevate this guy who has been the quarterback coach here for a couple of years, and he's the new offensive coordinator, but it made you feel okay because Sharon Moore has been the offensive coordinator. He was the head coach, and it made you feel somewhat all right. Here's where I was wrong. I thought Wink Martindale was a home run hire. Like, I will be the first one to admit that I thought he was going to be good. He was as he said, the OG of the system, and I thought the Michigan defense wouldn't skip a beat, and he'd be great. I was 100% wrong on that because it turns out I think the defense is even more disappointing than what the offense was given the expectations. So going forward, I think Sharon Moore has to surround himself with really, really good X's and O's guys going forward as a new head coach at Michigan.
Really? Can you feel the tension in the air right now?
Yeah, the fans are trying to get me to drink. Matt Kirby says he likes Manmosa Chris better. CJ is saying I have officially ran out of Kool-Aid. Yeah, I told you. I don't know. What can you say? I'm at a loss. They're 5-4. They're fighting for their lives to become bowl eligible. You got to play 2 teams ranked within the top 10, and then you got Northwestern. I just, does 6-6 do it for you? Is there a lot to talk about with a 6-6 football team? What is the I don't know, what's the bowl game that they have here in Detroit? Do you even know what that game is, Trent?
Is that the Motor City
Bowl? I don't know. Is anybody going to care? Is anybody going to care? I just think
you will. You're going to care.
Will I? Why? Why will I care? I'll have to care, actually, professionally. I'm just trying to go through some of these, see if there's any questions. I'm at 12:21 here. We've only been going for 34 minutes. It feels like an hour and 34 minutes.
Yeah, it feels like an hour and a half of talking.
Oh, my God.
This show is so bad that Matt Kirby compared us to The View.
This is a tough team right here.
I think The View is pretty good, actually.
Well, then I guess this is a really good show.
It was a compliment, I guess. Thank you, Matt Kirby. CJ from the Facebook page, he says, I think Bellamy is a better recruiter than Campbell. I could see him at his current position because of that. Yeah, I mean, Bellamy's a good recruiter. Campbell's a good recruiter, though. I mean, you talk to some of these quarterback recruits. JJ spoke very highly of him. I think Jaden Davis had a really good relationship with Kurt Campbell, and I think Brady Hart's got a pretty good relationship with Kurt Campbell. So Kurt Campbell seems to have a pretty good impact on the recruiting trail, but the offensive play calling is just it's no bueno. It's not good.
Yeah, I'm on board with Kurt Campbell staying on staff, maybe not as the offensive coordinator, or bring somebody in and keep him co-OC if you know that floats your boat. But I don't know anybody that would want to take a big demotion from the offensive coordinator back to quarterback coach. It just seems like it just doesn't happen very often, right? Then you're going to have players in the locker room being like, well, I think Kurt Campbell should be the one. We like him. He should be the one calling plays. And then it just seems like poor sides of interest there on both sides.
Yeah. This is an interesting question from Dwayne Jones from the Facebook page. He says, do you think things are different if they make Minter the head coach over Sharon Moore? To be honest, I don't even know if Sharon Moore or if Jesse Minter was interested in being the head coach at the University of Michigan. It just seemed like, you know, this was always going to be, it was either going to be Sharon Moore or they were going to go outside. And you saw it when Jim Harbaugh was out. It was Sharon Moore. He was the guy that was taking over. He was the acting head coach. And Jim Harbaugh, for his part, he was all in on this is Sharon Moore's deal. And I think that everybody sort of had that sense with Sharon Moore for, you know, a few years there that he was the guy that was going to be a highly sought after head coach somewhere else. And I remember feeling a fear of like, I don't want to lose Sharon Moore to another team. I want to keep him on Michigan's staff. And it just, I'm not going to second guess it now. And, you know, I just think there are some things that it's clear that he is still trying to figure out who he is as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. And I think that it takes a long time to get to a point where you are that sort of Nick Saban-esque, where you are where Jim Harbaugh was, or is even still, where you have that type of presence about you. You don't just walk in day one and automatically have that. I think that that's something that's earned over time. And it's, you know, you learn it by screwing up and failing and succeeding and figuring out what works best for you. And I think that that's the boat that Sharon Moore's in. That comes with the job description now. You have to make some difficult decisions. And you're going to, no matter which direction he chooses to go, Trent, it's a difficult decision. Bringing Kurt Campbell back as your offensive coordinator, that is a difficult decision. Letting him go is a difficult decision. There's relationships there. Same with a guy like Wink Martindale. Maybe not as tight of a relationship there, but like deciding to bring him back, that's going to be a difficult decision. Letting him go, I don't know, maybe not so difficult if there's a solid DC out there that's got a lot of experience at the collegiate level.
Well, he doesn't have the relationship with Wink that he does with Kurt Campbell.
That's
so,
right.
I mean, when you put the human element into it, I know it's business, but these guys still are human. So when you put that human element into it, it makes it a little more difficult. Just like Jim Harbaugh with Don Brown. I fully believe that's why it took so long to get him out of Ann Arbor, because Jim Harbaugh genuinely liked working with him.
Loved him. But
then it comes to the point of the fan base wants Jim Harbaugh gone because of how poorly that defense was, especially in big games. So it comes to a point in time. It's like, all right, you know, Don, I love you, but I got to move on and bring somebody else in. And that's what Jim Harbaugh did. And the rest is history.
Yeah. CJ says Minter or McDonald have to have an assistant or an analyst on their staff that's ready to step up. That's who you need to call. I mean, yeah, with Jim Harbaugh in the NFL and with Mike McDonald in the NFL, obviously Sharon Moore, you know, he's got some people that he can reach out to and, you know, try to get this coaching staff right. I just think it's a matter of, is that where he's at? Is he prepared to make those types of moves? And I think that that's going to be really telling of what he thinks about what he has. The vast majority of people on the outside looking in think both coordinators got to go. I'm not so sure that Sharon Moore feels the same way. In the postgame, he was very, you know, he said, and to his credit, I get it. You don't want to throw people under the bus publicly. That's a bad look. You know, he said, I'm not going to sit here and throw the play caller or criticize the play caller or however it was he phrased it. And I respect that. I mean, you don't want to publicly put on blast people that are on your staff. But then, you know, sometimes you listen to a guy like Nick Saban at the podium. And when things aren't good, he's not, he doesn't really hesitate in saying that things aren't good, or when he's got an issue with something, like he's very vocal about it. And I just think, maybe it's different strokes for different folks, but I would have liked to have heard more from Sharon Moore, as far as if he was feeling the same disappointment with his staff that we were all feeling. Just, tip your cap to it. Give us something to indicate that you can see exactly what you're seeing, or that we're seeing, and you're not happy with it. And we just,
I don't think Jim Harbaugh ever, and I could be wrong, but I don't think Jim Harbaugh ever called out his staff by names, or even like the OC has to call plays better. But Jim Harbaugh would be, as coaches, we have to do a better job, and it starts with me. Like I've heard Jim Harbaugh say that at press conferences myself. So yeah, I agree. I don't think Sharon Moore should have been like, Kirk Campbell, that was a terrible call. Like, you have to be better. But he could have been, we failed as coaches. We need to be better. And it starts with me. I'm the head coach. It starts with me and works its way down. And I think that could have been the approach that he could have went with.
Yeah, Harold. I mean, this is fair. Say you need to review and adjustments are needed, something along those lines. Yes, just say something. Because that was the weird contrast to me, is here you had your senior quarterback who has battled from being a preferred walk-on to being the backup to being the starter to losing the starting job, then back to the starter. And there he is sitting up at that table saying, that one's on me. To me, that just spoke volumes about who Davis Warren is and sort of how he views his role on this team. And I really thought Sharon Moore was going to come up and say, nah, screw that. We failed these guys. We need to get better. And there's something to be said for that. I think when you do that publicly, you're not calling anybody out individually, but you're saying that we recognize this isn't good enough and we need to do better for these guys, and we will do better for these guys. And as head coach, I'm going to make sure that happens. And I'm going to look at everything. I'm going to look at offensively. I'm going to look at defensively. I'm going to figure out what I need to do to put our players in the best position to be successful. Like, there's a lot of power in making a statement like that, and we just really didn't get it. And again, maybe those conversations are happening behind closed doors. I'm not sure. Trent, is there anything else? I mean, what else is there to talk about? What else is there to talk about? You want to talk about Indiana? The fighting Kurt?
Michigan basketball starts tonight, Chris.
Yeah, it does.
You're so excited for Michigan basketball.
I'm just not. I'm really, I'm trying to get there, but I'm not quite there because I'm still knee deep in what's happening with football. And it's just, it's a rude awakening for sure. And I think that, it's all about, you hope you can continue to have fire on the recruiting trail, and that Sharon Moore can continue to have some success there, because it looks like he is building some good stuff for the future. But, ultimately, you can have all the right pieces in the place that you want. If you don't have the right coaches, to call the right plays and coach these guys up, it's going to continue to be a problem. So it's something to keep your eye on. I don't think that we're going to know anytime soon, but shoot, this weekend, Bloomington, number 8, Indiana, is, you're going to have another good effort out of this team, or it could, Kurt Signetti loves to run up the score.
Oh, yeah.
So Michigan's going to have to come to play, but we will be back before that. We'll be back on Wednesday for Fan-Led Wednesday. We'll let you guys run the show, your questions, your topics. We'll do our best to answer them all. What a Debbie Downer of a show.
What a terrible show.
More energy on Wednesday. Appreciate y'all.
But she's touching his chest.